This presentation is to show that the reference to Babylon and its fall are references to the United States of America. It would be impossible for it to relate to anything other than the end time Babylon, the United States of America. The word Babylon is found in at least 304 times in the Bible, 291 times in the Old Testament, and 12 times in the New Testament. It appears mostly in the book of Revelation, which focuses on end time matters. That's in the New Testament. Some of the references to Babylon are that of the ancient Babylonian Empire. This lasted over 300 years and fell in 539 BC. We know from the Bible and according to the historians that Babylon was conquered by the Persian Empire, who itself was conquered by the Greek Empire. It therefore no longer existed after 539 BC. It is also important to note that many of the Old Testament references to Babylon are end time references, which obviously could not have been fulfilled by the ancient Babylonian Empire. The world is still going on many centuries after it fell in 539 BC. The Bible goes on to show the nature and characteristics that matches the American Empire to its ancient Near East counterpart, Babylon. Yet, many today in the Christian circles refuse to acknowledge these facts because many of them are invested in America's degeneracy and decadence. They bury their head in the sand when faced with this reality. But just like the proverbial ostrich, the consequence of facing a hungry lion does not go away when it buried its head in the sand. He must still face the reality of a hungry lion standing over him. In the same manner, we read of the consequences of Babylon being America. For example, Revelation 18:2 reads, "And he cried out in the strength of voice, saying, Is fallen, Babylon the Great, and is become home of demons, and a prison of every unclean spirit, and a prison of every unclean and detested bird." Revelation 18:17-19 continues, "For in 1 hour was made desolate so great a wealth, and every navigator, and all upon the boats sailing, and seamen, and as many as worked the sea, stood far off, and crying out, seeing the smoke of her burning fire, saying, What is likened to the great city? And they threw dust upon their heads, and cried out, weeping and mourning, and saying, Woe, woe, the great city, in which were enriched all the ones having the ships in the sea from her valuables, that in 1 hour she was made desolate." But I will get into that in more details right after this. Hello and welcome, Israel. My name is Stuart Allen. I was a Christian for over 20 years. A few years ago, my perspective changed when I became aware of some fundamental truths about the King James Bible and the Christian religion in particular. From that perspective, I began to understand who the God of Israel is, as well as who the true Israel are, and how that relates to salvation. I want to share it with you. The Bible reveals itself as the Word of the living God. It is infallible, therefore meaning it is without errors and contradictions. It cannot say anything that is not factual and true. But one quick caveat. I am talking about the original word as penned by the prophets of God as he spoke to them. The problem is that over the eons, the Gentile people who are opposed to God's plan of salvation for Israel has intentionally corrupted the Bible. From this corruption, that is the King James Bible, they created their own religion of Christianity. The fact is, God never created nor sanctioned any religion, be it Islam, Talmudism, Hinduism, etc. He did, however, design a salvation plan for none other than his people Israel. He outlined and directed it in a document we call the Bible and commanded us to follow it perfectly. By now, you might have realized that I'm critical of the Hebrew Israelite movement. I want to say that I harbor no malice or ill will to anyone. I am, however, opposed to the doctrine they teach in Israel. They teach precepts of men that do not stand up to the truth of the Bible and therefore is inimical to the salvation of Israel. A few examples. They have doctrines that hold that the King James Bible is the correct Bible for doctrine. The use of the apocryphal documents as doctrine also. The theory of evolution is also pervasive among them. Even the use of the moniker Hebrew Israelites are a common example of the numerous false doctrines they teach in Israel. Now, regarding that idea, I put forward a challenge. Search the Bible for any instances of God referring to his people as Hebrew or Hebrew Israelite and Jews. That would silence me instantly. Also, Edomites consider themselves as Hebrews, which they are technically true as descendants of Abraham. The discourse between Yeshua and themselves in John 8:33 relates to that. Interestingly, they were the first to call themselves Hebrews. During the time when things was getting hot for them in Europe over the negative connotation of the word Jew, they called themselves Hebrews. They never called themselves sons of Israel because they cannot. You can always have offense with man, but you should not have offense with the word of God. The least you can do is to give the word a hearing. Proverbs 18:13 says, "The one who answers a word before hearing the matter, it is folly and scorn to him." Then you should search the scriptures like the men of Berea in Acts 17:10-12. It says, "And these were more well-born of the ones in Thessalonica, who received the word with all eagerness, by the day examining the scriptures, if these hold such things." Now finally, if you watch, please participate, subscribe, vote up or down for that matter, and comment. I will personally reply to any comment addressed to myself. And just as important, please bookmark my website, www.theinfallibleWordofGod.com, and consider subscribing. It is free and the link is always in the description. Thank you. Now, this Judeo-Christian society and their pillars, that is doctrinaire capitalism and pro-American white supremacy, are in a quandary. They are faced with the enigma of America being Babylon with its intended consequences. They continue to lull their audiences in a false American self-righteousness. They now project other entities as substitute. These include New York, Saudi Arabia, the evil world system, Rome, the Vatican, and Iraq. But in a few sentences, I can show how all these ideas are easily discounted. Now let us take a look at New York. Now there are holier than thou Christian hypocrites like to mention this one. The televangelists would have you believe that sinful activities do not exist outside of New York City. But the fact is that New York is only a microcosm of Sodom and Gomorrah of the entire United States. One of the stupid reasons they give for New York being Babylon is because the Bible referred to Babylon as a great city. We read here in Revelation 18:10, standing from far off on account of the fear of her torment, saying, Woe, woe to the great city Babylon, the strong city, for in 1 hour your judgment came. But wait a minute, the Bible also referenced the kingdom of God as a city in the following verse. Revelation 22:14 says, Blessed are the ones observing his commandment, that their authority will be unto the tree of life, and by the gatehouse they should enter into the city. Now, you will have to imagine the city of God as a city among other cities of the city of God. Of course, that is not possible. Therefore, New York can never be what the Bible describes as Babylon. Now, it is true that Saudi Arabia is a wealthy country. This wealth is derived by a large reserve of petroleum. But no one can imagine Saudi Arabia as one of the economic giants on par with America, China, or even Russia. Furthermore, their wealth is mainly derived from their huge deposit of petroleum, which is protected by America itself. Therefore, for that and many other reasons, Saudi Arabia can never be regarded as a world power. As a matter of fact, they are protected by the world power, Babylon, America. Now we come to the next one. They call this the evil world system. They're obviously trying to disguise America as a political or religious system, and that is yet to be determined. No one knows what that is. But let's read Isaiah 13:19-20. It says, And Babylon will be the place which is called honorable by the king of the Chaldeans. That's the Chaldeans, that's the Americans. In which manner God eradicated Sodom and Gomorrah. It shall not be dwelt in into the eons, nor shall they enter into it through many generations, nor shall the Arabians go through it, nor shepherds in any way shall rest in it. Well, I'm not going to go through this part just now because it's a long thing and I don't want to, increase the time of this presentation. But look, the same verse describes the nature of Babylon as like Sodom and Gomorrah, which God burned out of existence. America is a country, as the verse says. It exemplifies America as Sodom and Gomorrah, which God burned out of existence. But if they really want to go to that route, then America is the head of the evil world system, obviously. So no world system can be replaced here for America. Now Rome is another one they mention. Many Christian scholars like to think that Babylon is a metaphor for the pagan Roman Empire. They relate this to the time of the persecution of the Christians by the Romans. That's the alleged Christians, I guess. But there are two things that make this idea absurdly stupid. Firstly, it was the Romans themselves that later issued the Edict of Milan in 313. This effectively legalized Christianity as the religion of the Roman Empire. Secondly, if we should go by the language of Revelation, then Rome would have had a calamitous end. That's like the end of the world. We know that never happened. The fact is, this chapter is about an end time event. We read in Isaiah 13:1, the vision against Babylon which Isaiah the son of Amos beheld. Now we continue in Isaiah 13:9. For behold, the day of the Lord comes, incurably rage and anger, to make the world desolate, and to destroy the sinners from out of it. We even go further down to Revelation. That's Revelation 18:21, and that says, and one strong angel lifted a stone as a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with impulse shall Babylon the great city be thrown, and in no way shall be found anymore. Obviously, these are only speaking of the language of the end times. Obviously, we haven't gotten there yet. So Babylon has gone already and we haven't reached the end time. So Rome is not the Babylon of the Bible because it's gone already. The Vatican. This is pushed by the Seventh-day Adventists and other similarly minded groups. It relates to a new world order scenario. This supposedly includes a Vatican-inspired conspiracy to install universal Sunday Sabbath worship. They have yet to present any evidence to support this absurd idea. The Bible describes Babylon as a great and extremely wealthy mercantile nation. It is today's contemporary of a superpower. Let's read Revelation 18:8. On account of this, in one day shall come her calamities, death, and mourning, and hunger, and she shall be incinerated by fire, for the Lord God is strong, the one judging her. Revelation 18:11. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no one buys their merchandise any longer. Revelation 18:12. Merchandise of gold and of silver and of precious stone and of pearl and of linen and of purple goods and of silk and of scarlet goods and all wood of thyine and every item of ivory and every item of most precious wood and of brass and of iron and of marble. Revelation 18:13. And cinnamon and incense and perfumed liquid and frankincense and wine, and olive oil, and fine flour, and grain, and cattle, and sheep, and horses, and coaches, and bodies, and souls of men. This is obviously a great mercantile nation. The Vatican could never fit this one, because obviously the Vatican has never been an instrument of international commerce and wealth. We don't know of that from its existence. It has never been an important nation. As of 2019, only 825 people live there. Rule out Vatican. The present day Iraq. There are some people who purposely try to distort the message of the Bible. They will tell you that Babylon referred to in Revelation is the Babylon of the one conquered by the Achaemenid Empire in 539 BC. Therefore, America will not have to worry because that prophecy was fulfilled already. Well, they forgot that Revelation was written in the 1st century AD. You cannot prophesy something that's already been fulfilled. Then there are also the ones that say that Babylon will be the country of Iraq. Therefore, during the United States attack on the people of Iraq, there were many books written about Saddam Hussein rebuilding Babylon there. We know that an idle mind is the devil's playground. Therefore, these authors were raking in a lot of money from Americans who are hungry for this nonsense. We know that Iraq could not be associated with the Babylon of the Bible. They respond with the argument that Saddam Hussein did build a spiritual Babylon, not a physical one. Iraq is and was always a third world country. It has minimal control over its own destiny, unlike America, whom we read, Revelation 17:18. And the woman whom you saw is the great city, the one having kingship over the kings of the earth. That means they rule over the world, over all the other leaders. If that is not America, then tell me what it is. But now, let us fan away the smoke screen and reveal the true Babylon as the Bible identifies it. Babylon is the self-righteous but spiritually and morally degenerate Americans. You recognize America's true nature despite her pretensions. We read in Isaiah 13:19, and Babylon will be the place which is called honorable by the king of the Chaldeans, in which manner God eradicated Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, this is what the Sodomites used to think of themselves, honorable. Yet, even though they were also a wealthy city, they were famous for sexual perversions. This is the reason why God destroyed them. Same way today, America is known for its proclivity to sexual perversions. But except for the right-wing white supremacists and the hypocrite Christian, this is widely accepted by the Americans. That is the Chaldeans, as in Isaiah 13:19. They promote this worldwide at considerable expense to even themselves. Now let us take a closer look at the word honorable as it is expressed in Isaiah 13:19. We read the tired definition, honorable, G1741. That is, held in good or in great esteem of high repute, illustrious, honorable, esteemed, notable, glorious, splendid. Figuratively, that is free from sins. Notice the American coined the term Judeo-Christians as a reference to their civilization's purported godliness. Therefore, they and their leaders hold themselves in a high repute. They think they are free from sins, as the Kaya just said. They are free from sins, even while they are promoting and engaging openly in these sinful activities. Another thing that identifies Babylon with America is the idolatry, the spiritual harlotry, and of course the abominations that goes on there. We read Revelation 17:4-5. And the woman was wearing purple and scarlet, gilded with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and the uncleanliness of her harlotry. And upon her forehead a name being written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of the harlots and the abomination of the earth. Now let us check with Toya and see what they define harlotry as. Toya definition, harlotry G4202 says illicit sexual intercourse. Well, we dealt with that already. Adultery, fornication, homosexuality, lesbianism, intercourse with animals, etc. Oh yes. Sexual intercourse with close relatives. Sexual intercourse with a divorced man or woman. Yeah, that too. You better realize that. Then metaphorically, it's the worship of idols. Now, the idolatry of American worship and doctrinaire capitalism. They propagate the false religion of Christianity. There is always accompanied by a love for money, capitalist exploitation, greed, pride, and warmongering all over the world. But we read Colossians 3:5, deaden then your members, the ones upon the earth. Harlotry, uncleanliness, passion, evil desire, and the desire for wealth, which is idolatry. Yes, uncleanliness, passion, evil desire, and the desire of wealth in general is idolatry, people. Another thing that makes America stands out as Babylon in the Bible is its enormous wealth and the prosperity of its people. From the Bible's account, at the time of the falling of Babylon, would have been the most prosperous and wealthiest nation. Actually, you should say the empire, the wealthiest empire that ever existed. It would represent the most catastrophic incident for the world economy and merchant. Revelation 18:11-13 says, and the merchant of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no one buys her merchandise any longer. Merchandise of gold and of silver and of precious stones, and of pearl and of linen and of purple goods, and of silk and of scarlet goods, and all the wood of thyine, and every item of ivory, and every item of the most precious wood, and of brass, and of iron, and of marble, and cinnamon, and incense, and perfumed liquid, and frankincense, and wine, and olive oil, and fine flour, and grain, and cattle, and sheep, and horses, and coaches, and bodies and souls of men. This part about the souls of men, I can imagine that I've never studied it completely, but I can imagine that's the spreading of the Christian religion worldwide. Because all that thing does is to destroy each person's soul that it goes to. So that might be it. One day I might get into a little more in depth on that, on what that is. But from these passages, you can see that America is wealthy. So you can imagine when it falls, it was a great fall for the other merchants of the earth. America has been the wealthiest and still will be until it falls. The website Visual Capitalists have America owning 30% of the world economy. Total wealth by country in 2019 from the same site shows that America only represents 4% of the world population and they control 30% of the economy. It is remarkable the nations China, South Korea, Japan, India, Pakistan, Taiwan, and Hong Kong together represent 32% of the world's wealth. They represent 40% of the people of the world, but have become wealthy because of the goods they provide America and Americans, making their merchants wealthy. Their wealth is generated by the consumption of Americans, as the Chaldeans, which only represent 4% of the world population. We read Revelation 18:15. The merchants of these things, the ones who enriched from her, shall stand from far off, because of the fear of the torment, weeping and mourning. Revelation 18:3 states that the merchants of the earth were enriched of the power of her indulgence, that is, the American indulgence. Therefore, it is the desire of the Americans to possess things that has enriched other people of the world. China is a great example. Babylon of the Bible is no other than America and the Americans. Now, all Bible prophecies must relate to the true people of Israel. As I am showing that America is the Babylon of the Bible, it is very important to note that any discussion of the Bible must relate to the people of the Bible, the true Israel of God. Now, God had made a covenant of salvation for the people of Israel. This is chiefly the reason for the Bible being written. It records their history and their journey in the world. It records God's commandments to them regarding the way in which they should walk to reach the required goal of salvation. Therefore, every prophecy in the Bible must relate to them. To put that reality into context, we understand from the Bible that in 587 BC, the southern kingdom of Israel fell to the Babylonian Empire. Many were killed and some fled to other countries, but many were carted off to servitude in Babylon. We know that this nation of Babylon no longer exists today. Therefore, any reference to Babylon is allegorically pointing to another nation of today. We can know this nation by investigating its relationship to the people of Israel. The original Babylon had a master-slave relationship with the people of Israel. It was brutal and oppressive. We can see in the time of America how this relates. Now, let's read Revelation 17:6 to see. And I saw the woman being intoxicated of the blood of the holy ones, and of the blood of the witnesses of Jesus. And I marveled, having seen her, with great wonder. This and many other verses connect the people of Israel to the Babylon of today, the United States of America. This is a master-slave relationship. It is brutal, murderous, and oppressive. This relationship started from the continent of Africa through the transatlantic slave trade and colonialism. Now, there were 7 colonial powers that divided Africa and sent its Bantu people into slavery. Well, so-called Bantu people. We know who they are. But now let us backtrack a little to add even more context to the fact that America is Babylon. We read Revelation 17:7. And the angel said to me, why do you marvel? I will tell to you the mystery of the woman, and of the beast, of the one bearing her, of the one having the 7 heads and the 10 horns. Revelation 17:9. Here is the mind of the one having wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, which the woman sit upon them. Obviously, the term sit upon them is indicating that the woman, America, has a rulership over these 7 kingdoms, who are at the head of the beast. We should identify 7 countries who had a slave-master relationship with the people of Israel and are associated with America. Now, history reveals these countries as the countries that had colonies in Africa. There are 7 of them: Britain, France, Portugal, Germany, Belgium, Italy, Spain. Now, the Berlin Conference convened in November 15, 1884, and it continued until February 26, 1885. It included 13 participants. Noticeably included is the United States. Let me tell you who the participants were. They were Austria-Hungary, that was a combination of Austria and Hungary. Then you have Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, the Ottoman Empire, Portugal, Russia, Spain, Sweden, Norway, the United Kingdom, and the United States. We're getting warm now. But although the United States became the 8th, that's when they became a superpower, they never had colonies in Africa. Since the subject is about the people of Israel, I must stress that all the references I make is regarding the so-called Bantu Africa. One may want to argue that the Italian colonized non-Bantu Africa. Not actually true, because even today there are many Bantu tribes living in Ethiopia, Somalia, Eritrea, and Sudan. For example, the Kunama people. All these people, they face the same oppression and cruelty from their non-Bantu neighbors even today. All Pan-Africans should pay some attention to that. Babylon the Great, the birth of the global superpower. One notices that although America was invited to the conference, she was not yet one of the 7 European colonial powers in Africa. She, however, this time had slaves she captured from Africa. Therefore, we read the following about America. Revelation 17:11. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. America did, however, become a superpower in 1898. She is now the 8th and rule over all the other 7 colonial powers. In fact, over all the world. Perdition here may indicate the steep decline into evil and ungodliness as soon as he became a superpower, and then finally with its destruction. God judges Babylon and the world because of the treatment of the people of Israel. Long ago, the God of Israel had written these words of comfort to Israel. Jeremiah 51:24. And I will recompense to Babylon and to all the Chaldeans dwelling there all their evils which they did against Zion before your eyes, says the Lord. While the rest of the world is lamenting the downfall of America, the saints of Israel are urged to rejoice. This rejoicing is obviously in Zion because we read Revelation 18:20. Be glad over her, O heavens, and the holy ones, and the apostles, and the prophets, for God judged your case against her. God is doing this right before the eyes of Israel, as he previously said he would in Jeremiah 51:24. Obviously, this converse is in Zion, not on earth. They would have been raptured to Zion first. As a first down payment of the judgment of this evil world, God just destroyed America for what it did against the people of Israel. They, the people of Israel, are witnessing it live from the comfort of Zion. We further read the following. Revelation 18:6. Render to her as also she rendered to you, and double up to her double according to her works. In the cup which she mixed, you mixed to her double. Revelation 18:24. And in her the blood of prophets and holy ones was found, and of all the ones being slain upon the earth. It is important to understand that America rules the entire world. The influence of white supremacy is far and wide. The doctrine of evolution, that is no God, and the false religion of Christianity, capitalism, perversions, and hatred for the people of Israel are propagated all over the world by America. Consequently, we read the following. Revelation 18:23. And the light of a lamp in no way shall shine in you any more, and the voice of the groom and the bride in no way shall be heard in you any more. For your merchants were the great men of the earth. For by your sorcery all the nations were misled. Babylon foes get their authority from God to destroy it. At this point, you may be wondering how Babylon was destroyed, as we read in Revelation 18:2, Revelation 18:8, Revelation 18:17, and Revelation 18:18, and others. This is covered in my blog post, What Are the Facts About the Great or Final Tribulation? I'm leaving a link in the description. But I will establish a general outline here. We read earlier that the 10 horns that the beast bore were 10 kingdoms that were not yet established. Revelation 17:12-13. And the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, ones which not yet receive a kingdom, but receive authority as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one opinion, and they give their power and their authority to the beast. We know that the beast is Satan. He gives authority to the 7 European nations as well as America. But these 10 kingdoms also get their authority from him, Satan. They are of one mind to accomplish a set goal. The goal is to destroy America, because we read the following. Revelation 17:16. And the 10 horns which you saw upon the beast, these shall detest the harlot, that's America, and they shall cause her being made desolate, and shall make her naked, and shall devour her flesh, and shall incinerate her with fire. Now, there's not enough information to identify all these 10 nations, but there are no shortages of enemies for America. America have heaped up much ill will among the nations. They are putting economic sanctions on half the world. They are promoting civil unrest worldwide and attacking many countries. They occupy and steal the resources of many nations. If you are up with current events, you know that China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, Syria, Iraq, the Palestinians, Afghanistan is on a short list that are currently antagonistic to America. Some have ballistic weapons, and some have nuclear weapons, and some are on the way to building them anyway. In the following verse, we read that God put it in their heart to destroy America. Watch this. Revelation 17:17. For God gave to their hearts to do his design, and to do one design, and to give their kingdom to the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. Now Jeremiah 51:1. Thus says the Lord, Behold, I awaken against Babylon and against the Chaldeans, that's the Americans, dwelling there and utterly destroying burning wind. And I shall send against Babylon arrogant ones. That's the same ones we've been reading, who is setting his heart, they setting their heart to attack. Continue. And they shall insult her and lay waste her land. Woe upon Babylon round about in the day of her affliction. Then finally, judgment will be passed on the entire world. We read Jeremiah 50:46. For from the sound of the conquest of Babylon, the earth shall be shaken, and her cry among the nations shall be heard. Isaiah 13:11. And I shall charge evil to the entire world, and to the impious their sins, and I shall destroy the insolence of the lawless ones, and I will abase, the insolence of the proud. Thank you.